Testament, the judges God appointed found themselves in a cycle. They would commit to being devoted to God, then they would disobey. God would discipline them. They would repent and God would deliver them, and they would commit to being devout again. The cycle happened over and over. They ignore their compass and would drift. It's easy to find ourselves doing the same thing, not paying attention and moving away from where God intends for us to be. So what do we do when we find ourselves drifting?
In the book of Judges, we've spent several weeks here going through the judges that God has appointed. And we come to one that may be one of the most famous ones, Samson. And in Judges chapter 13, in verse 1, we've heard these words before. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, so the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. We're in a cycle, and we've talked about it over and over and over. And hopefully, it helps us to understand that we can see ourselves in our own cycle, right? That's been the whole purpose. We see ourselves in the same cycle. And there's a little bit of a danger, I think, from Sunday school stories. How many people remember hearing about Samson in Sunday school? Yeah. And here's what's happened. When I say I'm going to talk about Samson, oh yeah, I know that story. He grew his hair. He got married to Delilah, and she cut his hair, and he died. I mean, it's kind of what you remember, right? But there's so much more to this story, so we're going to go through it. It's a little lengthy, bear with me. But this story is an incredible story, but we can see some things as we go through that maybe we can see in our own lives. So let's get started in chapter 13, verse 2. A certain man of Zorah named Manoah from the clan of Danites had a wife who was childless and unable to give birth. The angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, "You are barren and childless, but you're going to become pregnant and give birth to a son. Now see to it that you drink no wine or other fermented drink, and that you do not eat anything unclean. You will become pregnant and have a son whose head is never to be touched by a razor, because the boy is to be a Nazirite, dedicated to God from the womb. And he will take the lead in delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines." So, what's a Nazirite? There are a few people that we know of in the Bible that are Nazirites, but Nazirites are any man or woman who have been consecrated or set aside for God's purposes. And there are three that God set aside in the Old Testament, well, in the Bible. One is Samuel, John the Baptist, and Samson. And they had three characteristics. They could never cut their hair. They could never drink alcohol or any fruit of the vine. And they could not touch a dead body. And all of these are going to be real important as we walk through our story today. But God sets Samson aside, and he says, here's his purpose. God gives him a purpose for his life. He says he will take the lead in delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines. So God put a purpose on his life. Do you know you have a purpose on your life too? You do. We'll get to that. Let's go to chapter 14. 13:24. The woman gave birth to a boy, named him Samson. He grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he was in Manaah, Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I've seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. His father and mother replied, Isn't there an acceptable woman among you, related among your relatives or among our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me. She's the right one for me. Sounds like he's a little bit spoiled, first and foremost. Dad, that's what I want. Give it to me. But this is the very first step. He wants a Philistine woman. See, the Philistines are ruling over the Israelites, and they're starting to get comfortable. And he decides he wants one of their women. It's the first step. His parents didn't know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as he might have torn a young goat. And I thought that sentence was interesting, because it says it's so casual. Yeah, Saturday night we're hanging out, we cook a little bit on the grill, and then we tear some goats. I mean, I don't know. But he grabs this lion, and maybe for the first time we see that he's powerful, he's strong. And he tears this lion. Is that a problem? Yeah. Why? Because he killed something. He touched something that was dead. And notice we're going to have this phrase come up over and over and over again. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. We're going to see this again and again. And every time something miraculous happens, something powerful happens, that's the secret. The Spirit of the Lord came on him. Okay, let's keep going. We got a long way to go. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. That's a good thing. Sometime later, when he went back to marry her, he turned aside, looked at the lion's carcass, and in it he saw a swarm of bees and some honey. He scooped out the honey with his hands and ate as he went along. When he rejoined his parents, he gave them some, and they too ate it. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. Again, we're taking another step. It's not bad enough that he killed the lion. When one day he's going back through and he looks over and he's reminded of what he did before. And he saw honey in it, and he just went over and it didn't bother him. He just went over and scooped up the honey. And notice he's not telling his parents. He brought sin to them, and he didn't tell them. Now his father went down to see the woman, and there Samson held a feast as was customary for young men. This is the Bible's way to say he had a frat party. Now what's the problem here? Yeah, he's not supposed to drink, and we have a heck of a party. When the people saw him, they chose 30 men to be his companions. These are all Philistines. He doesn't have any friends of his own. They're bringing 30 Philistines over as his companions. You see where he's going. And the Philistines were smart. The men were smart. The women were beautiful. And so Samson wants to feel good about himself, so he's going to tell them a riddle. Now his father went, let me tell you a riddle, Samson said to them. If you can give me the answer within the 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you can't tell me the answer, you must give me 30 linens and 30 sets of clothes. Tell us the riddle, they said. Let's hear it. He replied, out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. For 3 days, they could not give the answer. On the fourth day, they said to Samson's wife, coax your husband into explaining the riddle for us, or we will burn you and your father's household to death. Did you invite us here to steal our property? Then Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing, you hate me. You don't really love me. Can you hear it? You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer. I haven't even explained it to my father and mother, he replied. So why should I explain it to you? She cried the whole 7 days of the feast. Doesn't that sound like a great time? So on the seventh day, he finally told her, because she continued to press him. She in turn explained the riddle to her people. Before sunset on the seventh day, the men of the town said, what is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? Now, this reply is not something I'm going to recommend to anybody. Lauren, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. I think it's a lesson that no matter what's going on in your head, don't let it come out your mouth. Then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him. We heard it again. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of everything, and gave their clothes to those he had explained the riddle. Burning with anger, he returned to his father's home, and Samson's wife was given to one of his companions who had attended him at the feast. Later on, so Samson goes back to his home. He's mad, furious. He goes back home to his father's house. Later on, he's gone for a while. At the time of wheat harvest, I don't know when that is, Samson took a young goat and went to visit his wife. Guys, the problem is sometimes you're bringing flowers and you should be bringing a goat. And there's something about the goats here. I'm going to my wife's room, but her father would not let him go. I was so sure you hated her, he said, that I gave her to your companion, the best man. Isn't her younger sister more attractive? Take her instead. What kind of a culture is this? Samson said to them, this time I have a right to get even with the Philistines. I will really harm them. So he went out and caught 300 foxes. I mean, that right there. How do you catch 300 foxes? Brandon, any ideas? I don't know. 300. And he tied their tail to tail in pairs. He then fastened a torch to every pair of tails, lit the torches, and let the foxes loose in standing grain of the Philistines. He burned up the stalks, the standing grain, together with the vineyards and olive groves. When the Philistines... That's a heck of a prank, right? Can you imagine? He's so mad. He's so strong and powerful. He's able to do this. And it doesn't say the Spirit of the Lord was with him there. When the Philistines asked who did this, they were told Samson, the Timnite's son-in-law, because his wife was given to his companion. So the Philistines went up and burned her and her father to death. Samson said to them, since you've acted like this, I swear that I won't stop until I get my revenge on you. He attacked them viciously and slaughtered many of them. He went down and stayed in a cave in the rock of Edom. Let's pause for a minute. What's the purpose of Samson's life? He's going to lead the people out of slavery from the Philistines out of their hold. Okay? Just remember that. Some of what he's doing is good. God's using him through this process. So the Israelites find him in the cave and they bind him up and they bring him out to the Philistines. Because remember, they're starting to become friendly with them. So let's jump down to verse 14. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. There it is. The ropes of his arms became like charred flax, and the bindings dropped from his hands. Finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey, he grabbed it and struck down 1,000 men. I mean, this is straight out of a movie. He finds it. What's the problem there again? He's touching something dead. That doesn't bother him. So he picks it up and he kills 1,000 men. Think about that. Powerful and strong. Still doing God's purpose. He kills 1,000, and then he's going to sing a song. He's dancing around. He says, then Samson said, with a donkey's jawbone, I have made donkeys of them. With a donkey's jawbone, I've killed 1,000 men. It doesn't really rhyme here, but I think it does in the original language. When he finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone. Mic drop, right? Just toss it over, and he walks away. And the place, I thought this was fun, the place was called Ramoth Lehi, which is the hill of a donkey jawbone. Because he was very thirsty, he cried out to the Lord. Let's jump down to, where am I at? Okay. Because he was very thirsty, he cried out to the Lord, you've given your servant this great victory, but must I now die of thirst, fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? Then God opened up the hollow place in Lehi, and water came out of it. When Samson drank, his strength returned, and he was revived. So the spring was called Enna Hakor, and it is still there today. Samson led Israel for 20 years. Chapter 16, one day Samson went to Gaza where he saw a prostitute. Here we go. Another step. He went in, spent the night with her. The people of Gaza were told, Samson is here. So they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. They made no move during the night at all. At dawn, they were going to kill him. But Samson lay there only until middle of the night. Then he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate together with 2 posts and tore them loose, bar and all. And he lifted them to his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill facing Hebron. I don't know what spiritual relevance there is there, but holy cow. He took down the city gates, put them on his shoulders, and walked them up the hill. Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. Here we go. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, see if you can lure him into the showing you the secrets of his great strength and how we can overpower him so we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver. She was going to be rich. So Delilah said to Samson, tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued. Samson answered her, if anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man. Then the rulers of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried. She tied him with them with men hidden in the room. She called him, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. But he snapped the bowstrings as easily as a piece of string snaps when it comes close to a flame. So the secret of the strength was not discovered. Then Delilah, can you hear her? Samson, you made a fool of me. You lied to me. You come now. Tell me, how can you be tied? He said, If anyone ties me securely with new ropes, it's not the bowstrings, I meant new ropes, that have never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man. So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. Then, with men hidden in the room, she called, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. But he snapped the ropes off his arms as if they were threads. Delilah then said to Samson, all this time you've been making a fool of me and lying to me. Tell me, how can you be tied up? He replied, if you weave the 7 braids of my head into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pins, I'll be as weak as any other man. We're starting to get closer to the truth, aren't we? So while he was asleep, Delilah took the 7 braids of his head, wove them into fabric, and tightened it with a pin. Again she called, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and pulled up the pins and the loom with the fabric. The stuff flying all over the place. He just sits right up. Then she said to him, how can you say I love you when you won't confide in me? This is the 3rd time you've made me a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength, which is with such nagging she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. So he told her everything. No razor has ever been used on my head, he said, because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man. When Delilah saw that he had told everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, come back one more time. He's told me everything. So the rulers of the Philistines returned with silver in their hands. After putting him to sleep on her lap, she called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and thought, I'll go out as before and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. All of this has been the drift. All of this has taken Samson from where he was supposed to be. He had a purpose for his life, and every little step he let temptation, he slowly let sin just pull him in, and that's what sin will do. He's starting to drift. Do we have the... He's gone from devotion. Now he's been through disobedience. He's working around, and now he's coming to discipline. Let me tell you that sin will catch up with you. When you drift, sometimes you can still do good things. God's Spirit is still with you. There's still good things happening in your life, but sin will not go and not catch you. You can get so comfortable in sin that you actually lay your head down in your enemy's lap and tell them your secrets. Verse 21, then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. That would be something you would use a bull or a donkey for, an animal. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. That's important. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and celebrate, saying, our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one who laid waste our land and multiplied our slain. While they were in high spirits, they shouted, "Bring out Samson to entertain us." And so they called Samson out of the prison, and he performed for them. It's a circus. When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servants who held his hand, "Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple so that I may lean against them." Now the temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Then Samson reached toward the 2 center pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on one, his left on the other. Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than he did while he lived. Do you know a person who's had a special gift? Maybe they were gifted at a certain thing. Maybe it was in sports, or maybe it was with intellect, or maybe it was charisma, and they just threw it all away. Samson had a special gift, and couldn't you imagine what this story might have been had he been faithful to God? I want to look at just some characteristics of Samson very quickly. Samson was strong on the outside, but he was weak on the inside. Samson was impulsive. He was impulsive. He was led by his emotions, not by the Spirit. Anybody remember the marshmallow test? Remember that? In the 70s, they took some young kids and they put them in a room. And they put them individually in a room. They put a marshmallow on the table. And they said, "You can eat that marshmallow if you want. We're going to leave the room. And we don't know how long we'll be gone. But when we come back, if you haven't eaten the marshmallow, we'll give you 2. And the results were incredible. There were some kids who couldn't wait. They ate it right away. Instant gratification. But there were some kids who decided that they wanted to wait. And they did all kinds of things to try to wait. They'd get up and they'd walk around, and some would get right down. They'd look at it. One little boy got down and licked the table beside it, just getting so close, but he waited. Here's the interesting thing. They followed these people, these kids, all the way through their life. And the people who waited did not instantly gratify themselves, who had self-control, did significantly better in life. They did better in school. They had better careers. If we are impulsive, that gives Satan an opportunity. He can just throw something up in front of us and we're going to grab at it. That's what happened to Samson. Every time he got mad, he just reacted. He compromised. 1, he was impulsive. 2, he was compromising. From the very beginning, he decided he was going to be with a Philistine woman. Then he touched a dead carcass. Then he drank alcohol. Then he did everything against what he was supposed to do. He continued to compromise. When we compromise our faith just a little bit, it compounds. And what happens is we start to get a little farther away. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's just one little thing. It's just one little lie. I didn't want to hurt their feelings. It's just one little thing. But one little thing after another little thing after another little thing will start to draw you in a direction you don't want to be. Sin compounds. The third thing and fourth thing kind of go together. He was unteachable. But he was unteachable because he was alone. Nowhere in this story does he have somebody who could call him out, bring him back to center. He hid from his mom and dad. And his wedding party, they had to get 30 people from the other country. He had no friends. Folks, if you don't have people in your life who can look at you and tell you you're wrong, you're putting yourself in a bad position. If you don't have somebody who can look at you and say, that's not right, that's sin, you shouldn't do it, and you don't listen to them, you're not teachable, you're not moldable, you're setting yourself up for some serious problems. Because Satan is like a roaring lion going around seeing who can he devour. He's after you. When deer are out in the field, if there's a lion out trying to chase them, which one do they get? They get the one that falls behind, the one that's out there by themselves. You have to surround yourself with people, the right kind of people. And then finally, he was proud. Pride. He got so proud that he laid down in his enemy's lap, told her to sing. How could he be surprised that she wasn't going to do it? She had done everything else. She had tried every other trick, everything else he had said, she did it. How did he not know? But he forgot. He got so deep into sin that he laid down in it and didn't realize he was in so much trouble. He assumed that it was his strength. He didn't even realize the Lord had gone away. I'm going to go ahead and have the band come up. The world needed somebody better than Samson. And I want you to understand that the world got somebody better than Samson. 1,100 years later, Jesus was born miraculously like Samson. He had incredible strength, but his strength was over demons and disease and death. Jesus was betrayed by somebody who acted like his friend and handed him over to his enemies. Jesus was chained and tortured and put on public display and mocked. Jesus died with his arms outstretched. And when it looked like he was defeated, he would actually defeat his enemies. There's so many similarities between Samson and Jesus, but here's some differences. Jesus was put in chains for his sin. Jesus was not put in chains for his sin. He was put in chains for my sin and your sin. Samson was a strong man made weak by his own sin, but Jesus was the mighty God who voluntarily became weak to save us from the chains of sin. Surely he took up on our pain and bore our sorrows, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted, but he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to their own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. My final point is it's never too late to cry out to God. At the end, we see someone who was broken. Everything had been stripped away. And one last time, humbled, he cried out to God, just give me the strength to accomplish the purpose in your life just one more time. Maybe today you find yourself with some of these characteristics in your life. Maybe you find yourself being drawn in little at a time into sin. It's not too late. Jesus died for your sins, and all you have to do is reach out to Him and He will bring you back. You don't have to wait until you die. You don't have to sacrifice your life. You don't have to come to the very end. You can turn around and come to Him today. If you're chained, He can break those chains for you. Let's stand and sing this song. If you have a decision to make, now's a good